Thank you so much for joining us during this lunch session. We've previously held these events during like 4 o'clock, which I thought was later in the day. I thought I'd experiment and do something middle of the day during lunch. So I'm not going to be eating during this event because I don't want to be chewing and eating and interviewing Hooman. So uh, I'm saving you from that. But I'm super excited. We have Hooman Shahidi, who's the Chief Product Officer at SimpliSafe with us. Hooman, say hello.
Hi, Keith, and everyone out there. Really excited to be here with you, Keith, and with VentureFizz. I think what you guys have done from for the community in Boston around being able to recruit and find great talent has been great. I know SimpliSafe, we've really appreciated some of the talent that's kind of flown through us and heard about us through VentureFizz. I get a great opportunity to work with a number of folks that actually highlight that they came to us based on information they found on VentureFizz. So excited to be part of this with you.
Well, thank you so much for the plug. That was not, I didn't ask you to do that. So that was actually really super nice. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Um, well, this is the fourth event that we've had with a product leader. So the first event we had was with Paul English, who's an entrepreneur and has launched so many products like Kayak and Lola and many, many more. We had Matt Kaplan, who led product at Log Me In and Toast, and Gillen Hawks, who Six River Systems, which was acquired um, by Shopify. So we've had these great product leaders joining us, and I'm super excited to talk about the whole SimpliSafe story. I mean, you've got such a great background, so there's so much that we're going to discuss that I'm excited about. But if you haven't caught any of the prior events, I'm going to put this in the chat. So if you do want to catch any of the prior events, they're there on VentureFizz. And these events all support our product management community. So we launched a product management community a few months ago. It's going very well. The whole goal of it is to bring people together in the Boston tech scene that are product managers at all levels of experience. So there's sharing of information and resources, job opportunities. But the most important aspect of what people are looking to get out of this community is networking. And networking is super important for your career, whether if it's, hey, I'm looking for a job and I need to engage my network. But even when you're not looking for a job, that's when you really need to build up your network, because when you do need to engage it, it needs to be there versus scrambling to try to connect with people and hope they get back to you. So keep your networking going. Along those lines, we're hosting our first in-person networking event for the community. It's next week, next Tuesday at 5 o'clock in Boston. So if you're a product manager in the Boston tech scene and you're interested in an invite, I'm going to put the link there. So go there and you can request an invite. And I'm super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then last, I'm always open to connecting with people on LinkedIn. So here is a link to my LinkedIn. So hit me up there. Okay. And the chat is open. So if you have questions, chime in. I'm happy to weed them into the conversation, not just at the end. We will have time at the end for questions, but if you have a question while Human's talking about something, let's just try to keep it in the conversation and keep things going. All right, let's get into Human now. That's all the information stuff that we had to get through, but let's get into the meat now. So I do want to ask you three very simple questions to start things off to get a little bit more about you.
Sure,
So
fine. Hey,
do you care, like, so what do you prefer? Beach or mountains?
I'm definitely a mountain guy. No doubt.
Nice.
I actually live out in the mountains a little bit. I my permanent home is in the Berkshires, and I commute into Boston on a weekly basis to be in the office here in SimpliSafe. But I definitely prefer the mountains to the beach.
Oh, it's beautiful out there. That's
Yeah, it sure
phenomenal.
is.
Early bird or night owl?
Um, it's a good question. For me, it kind of depends, but I would say I really prefer the mornings. Get up early, get ahead of everything else, and be ready when the rest of the crowds show up.
I'm with you. I like to get to bed early and then wake up early and have a full day. Okay, favorite activity outside of work?
Favorite activity outside of work, I would say, at my core, I'm a product person. So I actually like to build things outside of work, work with my hands, do work around the house, and just create things that I can be proud of, which is kind of consistent with what I do at work, but in a potentially different and various fields.
Very, very cool. All right, well, let's get into the substance here of why we're meeting here. So, I do want to kick things off by talking about your professional background. You've held some very interesting roles throughout your career. One of which I learned that you invented a consumer product that is used by so many people. So let's talk about your professional background.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Keith. Yeah, I would say my background is has been pretty nonlinear for somebody who landed in a product leadership role at this point in my career. So I started right out of school and went to work for Procter Gamble in Cincinnati, Ohio. And half of that time I spent in research and development. And the other half I spent in product management and marketing. And actually, in the first half of my career, first half of that time, so the 20 years that I spent with P&G, um, my team were the folks who invented. I'll take a little bit of credit for the invention, but a lot of the credit goes to the other people on my team for inventing and developing the product. Crest White Strips, which launched in the early 2000s. And it was a tremendous product, really sort of democratized tooth whitening your teeth and made a lot of difference in people's lives. And also, it was a very strong business for P&G at the time. Um,
I mean, that's a huge product. And it was a new category. It didn't exist.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So before we launched White Strips, if you wanted to get your teeth whitened, you had to go to the dentist. You had to pay $600, and it was a pain. It was painful, and we took that benefit and made it a real consumer product that you can go to a store. And nowadays, I think you can buy a box of White Strips for $20. And the benefit is just as much as what you used to be able to get with a dentist back then for $600. So it was a really exciting time, really exciting product, and a whole new consumer category that we created.
All right,
Um,
from there, what'd you do next?
yeah, so after that, I actually decided to make a pretty radical move in my career and went into brand management and marketing at P&G. Um, and, that was the great thing about a company like P&G at that time is that you could really change your career and move to a very different field without having to change companies. And the company was very much willing to invest in individuals to be able to do that. So I had the chance to do that and really expand sort of the opportunities and the knowledge that I would be exposed to. Um, um, and that kind of led me to another 10-year career in brand management and marketing. And in that time, I even got to travel abroad. I took an international assignment for 3 years and went to Africa, of all places, and was leading the expansion of the P&G portfolio in sub-Saharan Africa. Um, and then I came back to the US after that expatriate assignment. I landed in Boston, leading the North America shave care business. So then think about that as the Gillette blades and razors and shave preps for North America. And that was about a 2-year assignment. About 2 years into that, this really great opportunity came for me to join iRobot. And this was about 2015, and the team there had really kind of made this made this plan to take the consumer robots business that iRobot had from what was, I would say, not considered to be a really serious product by many people to actually making it an essential household appliance. Um, and that's um, and that's between 2015 and 2020. We grew that business massively, almost tripled the penetration of the category. And it was really all behind understanding consumer needs, figuring out the right products that we were going to build, and commercializing them in an effective way that addressed, call it the customer barriers to getting into the category. So that was, again, a really great ride. Between White Strips and the trajectory we were on at iRobot, those were two really exciting career highlights for me, being able to do that. So I was at iRobot until 2022. And then this great opportunity came along at SimpliSafe to join a great company, who's still based in Boston, that I think is on the path to um, really make really big waves in the home security industry, marry, really great innovation, um, with consumer needs, and elevate the security market, for consumers in the U.S. So really excited to now be here, leading the broader product team, which is, on my team, I have product management, industrial design, user experience, research, as well as the monitoring operations team. And I can talk a little bit about like why that makes a lot of sense for us and why we see that as being a really big advantage for us. In that our operations team is actually embedded within the product team. So think about that as the folks who are actually like, when something happens in our customers' homes, my team is the one who's actually finding getting those incidences, calling the customer, and calling emergency responders if it's so warranted. And we really see massive innovation in that space being, what we're gonna how we're gonna differentiate ourselves, because ultimately that's where people stay safe.
Well, that's a feedback loop, right? Like you're constantly hearing what's happening out there versus maybe other companies might think of outsourcing that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things there. One is that it is absolutely a feedback loop. My operations team and my product team are very closely linked, and they're really all solving for the same metrics ultimately, in terms of how quickly we're responding, how effective we are, how do we reduce the false alarms for our customers. We all care about the same outputs. The other thing that I think is really important there is that when you think about building new services, um, you always have to start with scale in mind and build these services so that they're scalable and you build them while they're operating. And having our two teams, the operations team and the product team, so closely linked enables us to do that. It's very similar, like if you're building hardware, you build a piece of hardware that you can't manufacture and scale, you're going to have a really big problem getting that to customers. And I fundamentally believe that innovation is great, but it doesn't really count if you can't commercialize and scale it. And that's where the magic happens, is when you get it to market, when there's, millions of people using the products and services that you create.
Well, what I think is fascinating about your career is it's constantly been like category creating or leading products. We talked about the Crest White Strips, razors, iRobot Roomba, which I love my Roomba, um, and SimpliSafe, which I don't know if this is an accurate statement, but I'm going to say it anyways. So when the company started, it was always the incumbents were hardwired into your home with the keyboard panel. There wasn't a way to, so I had Chad Lawrence, the founder of SimpliSafe, on my podcast a long time ago. And he just talked about the background story where he had an apartment and wanted to have a security system, but wasn't going to have something installed, and the landlord wouldn't want that. So that was the idea that prompted him to create something that's mobile and something that's so much more consumer friendly. So fast forward to today, SimpliSafe is I mean, I see your advertisements all the time. It's a category creator that, dominates in the field.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean the story that Chad tells, I think is pretty inspiring. Right? Because um I think nothing is more powerful for a product manager, a product leader, than having firsthand experience and getting out there. Um, right. And that's both yourself using whatever category you're in, and also talking to customers, talking to your friends, your family, and observing people. And I think that really gives you the insights that are not intuitive. You're never going to get those sitting in an office, staring at a laptop and searching Google. Those are just not going to come to you. And I think that's what I see really differentiates great product managers. I mean, I'll tell you one of the things that I really look for in my team is for them to really experience the products and the services they build on a day in, day out basis. And if you really aren't willing to do that, it makes it very difficult for you to be an effective product manager.
So how is your team structured? You talk about, the different functions that fall under your umbrella, but like you have software, hardware, services. There's a lot of different components that make simple, and you have so many different products that fall under, your different lines. So how's everything structured?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time thinking about structuring our teams, and I'll tell you, I think there's never a perfect structure for a product team, right? Because there are so many stakeholders that the product teams have to work with. Because you got to think about how's the technology stack. What is this technology stack you're working with, and what does that translate to from an engineering organization standpoint? So you got to have some level of alignment with the engineering team. Then the other thing you have to think about is the customer or the user experience, and how do um, how do you ensure that the product managers and the designers are really um, in tune with what the customers think and what experiences they're having. So they're really designing the experiences from an end-to-end standpoint. So we kind of take all those things into account. And I'll tell you the thing that I think we've done really well and has worked really well is what I mentioned around having the operations team embedded within product and within my organization. I think that's very unique, and that's been one of the best decisions we've made from an organizational standpoint. The way we have chosen to structure our teams today. Is that I have the product team. So that would be both product managers and designers, both UX and industrial designers, um, sort of structured in what we call zones, which are basically, think of it as monitoring being a zone, which includes both product, user experience, as well as the operations team, who are like very tightly integrated, thinking about both the customer experience as it comes to monitoring, but also the technology stack and the operations metrics and processes that we need to go through to be able to monitor our customers. And then we have a hardware and platform zone, which is a pretty big part of our organization. And think about that as, we're going to build a new camera. What are all the requirements for that camera? We're going to build a new set of sensors, and that also aligns very closely with the engineering team, which is very hardware focused, as well as the back end team. So think about that as the software that's running in the cloud that supports our overall infrastructure. And then finally, the other zone is our app team, who's really focused on our mobile app and really creating that as a really important touch point for the customer, both from a product usage standpoint, as well as support, setup, and really helping the customer in that whole journey of being aware of what's going on, and helping to keep them safe. And I'll say that's an area that we've made massive growth in over the last few years, and that has really become a key part of delivering outstanding customer experience for our SimpliSafe subscribers.
Well, there's a good question that you just kind of covered this a little bit, but the customer experience team, so like what team is really the end user experience, right? There's so many different pieces of an experience of this system in your home. Like what team is focused on that versus what the the phone support team is collecting?
And sorry, just for clarity. So when you think about the system in your home, if you will, that is that's not necessarily an experience. So I look at it, or we look at it at SimpliSafe, is that you go buy a security system because you want to keep you and your family safe. And that has lots of different sort of reasons for it, whether it's like you want to prevent burglaries or you're worried about environmental issues. So we support, or we have solutions for all that, right? So that is the shopping journey you take, and you eventually end up with a system in your home that comes in a box. And the first experience you have with that system is this journey between taking that box of hardware and having it set up in your home, having it working, and being connected to our monitoring services. So that's an entire experience, and we have we kind of then take that experience and say, okay, what's the right team to go after that? So we said, hey, there's the app is going to be a really great tool during that setup and onboarding to help guide the customer. So let's go create an experience there that sort of like guides that customer through that journey so that they're successful in their setup and onboarding journey. Once you have that thing set up in your home, then there is, call it an everyday usage that happens. So, you arm the system at a certain time, you disarm it before you leave. You want to keep track of whether all your sensors are like fully connected and working, whether you need to change that battery. So there's this like sort of everyday experience where like nothing bad is happening. But what we're really looking for is for customers to know that their system is, their system health is perfect. And they also, we really want them to use our service. When I say use our service, I mean arm it, right? What we know is that people who arm their system are happy customers. Helping make that frictionless for them is really important. So that becomes an experience. And then there is the experience most people don't want to have, which is when you actually have an alarm. And that is really a big moment of truth for our product. And SimpliSafe is that how we deal with customers in that moment. And that is like, hey, how quickly do we reach out to them? What is the attitude and how our agents talk to those customers during that event? How do we guide them through that whole process of like this chaos of my alarm is going off and in the background and I'm getting a call from you and I don't know what's going on. And we have so many examples, and we train for this day in and day out of how do we make that customer feel at ease? How do we get them the help they need? If it's a false alarm, how do we help them so that they don't have more false alarms? Because it's a hassle for them. And it's also a cost for us, but really more a hassle for them that they have to have a false alarm, which is a very common thing in this category. And getting that, reducing that is a huge benefit for the customers. And in fact, that's one area that, like, when my monitoring team looks at some of the KPIs, reducing alarm rates is a major KPI for them. And over the last 5 years, we have, I think, reduced them by 67%, just by, better sensors, ability for the customer to be able to be more in control and have more knowledge about what's going on in their house. Doing things like allowing the customer to schedule arm and disarm of their system so they're not accidentally tripping it when they let the dog out in the morning. So all kinds of these, like, things that you learn by talking to customers, by being in customers' home, and also being a customer. And then taking that and applying it back to how do we make these products better? How do we enhance the user experience with SimpliSafe?
All right, well, so that is a perfect segue to, then there's a couple questions about this as well. So it's all kind of combining together. So you're like, how do you think about your product roadmap, right? So your PMs, maybe they're getting all this feedback from, the customer service or the operation center.
Yeah.
Then, how do you think about constantly innovating, staying ahead of the curve, yet not too far ahead that maybe the consumers aren't there yet, right, for adoption. So how
Yep.
do you think about your roadmap as it relates to this category and making sure that you're taking that feedback, but not doing things that are too far ahead of consumer adoption?
Yeah, I think first, when you think about a product roadmap, you got to start first with where are we going as a company and what do we want to be? So, let me take a couple of steps back before I get into how I think about it today. So if you rewind to when Chad and Eleanor started this company, they saw a huge opportunity in that you had these, old, well-established companies that were frankly just complacent, charging customers lots of money to provide a service that and with pretty clunky hardware. So I think Chad saw this opportunity and he said, "Hey, I want to be that company that's going to disrupt them. And I'm going to disrupt them by providing a easy to install system that you can do it yourself, and I can deliver great value for monitoring your home." And so he created a roadmap that was very much focused on that. And that's served us really well at SimpliSafe over the last decade or so. I think that as we look forward, we really first start with, like, hey, where are we going next? And what we're really looking to do is actually deliver better outcomes from a security and safety standpoint for our customers. So it always starts there. That's like kind of how what I view as the North Star of our roadmap. Um, and then we sort of look at, like, okay, what's the business opportunity, and what are the sets of products and services we need to deliver to be able to do that. And so that's I think first is call it our innovation roadmap, and what that's driven. And what we really decided at that point around the innovation roadmap is that um, uh, what customers are really paying for in this category and want in the category is the professional monitoring services. And that's where we kind of focused our innovation. And in fact, a few months ago, we announced a beta of a whole new service that really extends the protection of SimpliSafe beyond the four walls of your home to actually protecting the outside of your house so you can prevent crime before it actually gets in your house. And we see that as a major step change in being able to provide a higher level of safety and security for the SimpliSafe customers. We're now in a beta. I think we're going to have a really exciting announcement coming up around this particular service. But really, that was all like sort of hatched because we said, hey, we're moving to not just be, we still are going to be a great value, but we're actually going to deliver better and more effective services than our competitors. And that's where we started. That's where we pushed a lot of the innovation. And then, of course, you always have to be upping your game on your base business and what you do for your installed base. And I think that's really critical for all products. I think it's even more critical about in a service business where unlike a lot of the other brands out there, we don't have contracts with our customers. The way I think about it is that we have to regain the trust of our customers every month. Because they can make a choice that, hey, you know what? Next month I'm going somewhere else. No, we're gonna make it better next month so that you stay with SimpliSafe and you're even happier next month than you were the month before. And so, a pretty substantial chunk of our team is focused on just continuous, iterative improvement of our services, whether it is like how well our cameras work or what are the new sort of incremental features we're going to just keep adding that customers are asking for, that we actually have insight that will make customers' journeys better. One of the first things that when I came, the app team really wanted to do was this concept of being able to schedule, arm, and disarm your system, because we know that if you are constantly arming your system, you're going to be happier. So that was just a feature that like we added in. It wasn't a huge feature, but it really made a big difference in terms of customer satisfaction, because we know that arming drives satisfaction. Therefore, let's go drive arming, and then we'll have happier customers. So it's really that's how I sort of think about our roadmap.
And is there like a process that you follow to approve and fund new projects, services, initiatives? And then how do you decide which ones, hey, this wasn't the idea we thought it was going to be, and we need to actually, go in a different direction or just, stop?
Yeah. So yeah, of course. Especially, I mean, to be clear, I think there's different levels of scrutiny that's, I think, needed. So for example, this whole concept of we got this constant improvement going on, and they're relatively small scope projects. So we don't spend, months deliberating the ROI of those projects. We know they're good things to do. And even if they're not, they're very much type 2 type of decisions that like we can reverse at relatively low cost. But when we say, hey, we're taking on what is a big project? You got to really put some thoughts behind the scope of what you're building, why you're building it. Is there a market out there? How are we differentiating ourselves? And then ultimately partner really closely with our outstanding finance team to develop a model that says, hey, we're doing something that has a good ROI, or does it not have a great ROI? And be able to kind of think through that and be able to substantiate, doing a multi-year project to develop a new product or or service. And what the other thing, and I think this is, I would say, pretty important for product managers, product teams, and also engineers to understand is that, in my 30 years plus, I guess at this point of building products, I don't think I've ever started with a spec and ended delivering exactly on that spec. And I think that's okay. That should be that if you really are doing that, there's something not right in that maybe original spec was just not ambitious enough. Um, it's really important for teams to be flexible and understand that requirements and how we fill those requirements are going to change in the life of a project. And where you end is never going is rarely, I won't say never, but is rarely where you start. And that is perfectly okay. Um, and you really have to kind of figure out where the right intersection is between what is desired, what is ultimately desired, what is possible from a technical standpoint, and what is achievable with the limited resources and time that you have to deliver. And that is always an iterative process until the day you actually land the project and launch it. And really great product folks and engineers understand that and can deal in that environment.
Well, there's a great question that I'm sure lots of people are curious to know about, and I'm going to carve it into two sections. So AI, of course, everyone's wondering, like, okay, so with AI as it relates to SimpliSafe's business, right? Like, so Stephanie mentions, like, what opportunities are there? It could, maybe potentially release false alarms, increase response time. So there's lots of different use cases. So how are you thinking about that as it applies to your product set? And then as a different question, what is the role of AI as it relates to the craft of product management?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first questions, honestly, is a lot easier. There is huge opportunity for AI to be assistive in making our products better, and sort of the things that customers care about more effective and faster. Um, and so being able to sort of figure out without talking too much about our like unlaunched products, but really being able to leverage AI to know whether or not a particular event is dangerous or not, or has a higher probability of being dangerous. And you elevate that in the queue, you respond to it faster. You like avoid some of the sort of other checks before you go to first responders. For example, if you have an event, you're like, hey, based on some of the predictive modeling, you'd say these types of parameters are much more likely to be a real event of an intruder on the property. You might only call one of the contacts, or you might have to call none of the contacts and go directly to deploying first responders. That's a great win for our customers because we can get there faster. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there, and we're looking at all of those to really deliver a better outcome for our customers. We're especially in this outdoor monitoring service that we've created. We're relying on AI to help us ascertain situations of people being on the property and how we handle those and how our agents engage with those events. We have huge runway there to continue to leverage AI. So it's going to play a really big role for us. And in fact, we've hired a really strong team in SimpliSafe that's 100% dedicated to leveraging AI in making our products more effective and our service more responsive to the customer's needs. In terms of the actual craft of product management, who knows? There's all kinds of speculation. We'll all be robots someday, is some people's current thinking. You know, I maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned, but I think that the real magic of um, product designers is that firsthand experience that they get with customers and really understanding customers' feelings, emotions, and gleaning insights that are not obvious. Um, I think it's going to be a long time before AI replaces that. So I would if I was thinking about product management as my career, I would not abandon that quite yet, thinking that AI will take your place in 2 years.
But it certainly will help with productivity, right? Of getting things done, hopefully faster. And
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But I think um, and this is, I think, the case with any new technology. Um, it just is going to require the human to up their skills and up their differentiation. Um, as some of the more basic stuff can be done with new technology. Um, right. So, and I think that's going to be no different here.
Well, what do product managers need to think about, or even founders, like when, commercializing products, like what do they need to think about as it relates to
Um, well, everything, but
that?
yeah, I mean, I think, uh, the I have a lot of passion, and this is a lot of this is driven by sort of my own personal career journey around um, not being obsessed with new technology or innovation for the sake of innovation, but really understanding um, why you're creating what you're creating, who's gonna buy it, do they care enough for it to bear the cost that it will inevitably involve in adding this to the set of products that they or services that they purchase. I mean, I'll go back to way back. You mentioned white strips that I worked on. It was probably my first uh, major experience in this when you think about a new category, and it was very enlightening. Because when I was at P&G working on it was the Crest brand at the time. Um, we sold products that were in the price range of $2 to $6. And we had created this product that was providing a benefit way beyond what Crest toothpaste ever provided. And we went on this journey to figure out, like, how do you price this thing? Because there was a big contingent of folks who were like, yeah, this should be like $10. Why would anybody pay more than $10 for it? And when we actually went and did a lot of the testing, what we found out was that people really viewed this benefit to be a $600 benefit, because that's what it costs when you go to the dentist to get your teeth whitened. And it turned out that, like, this wasn't a $10 product. At the time we launched it, we actually launched it at $44 a box. And that's what the data taught us, is that, okay, the benefit you're providing with what you're giving to customers, they value a lot more than you thought. And so you got to make sure you really understand that. And then I think you focus on, like, hey, how do I create the set of solutions that can deliver on the benefits that I am trying to provide my user. Um, I think the other thing that is really important, and I think sometimes product teams miss out on, is they get 100% laser focused on the user experience and forget about the other aspect, which is the shopper. You can have a product that has a fantastic user experience, but if you can't get a shopper to pick that up and actually like sign up for it or put it in their basket, however they're like acquiring your products, um, it's never going to see that user because you got to get through that hurdle first. So the other, I think, really important part about product is that you got to create products that marketers can sell, and that's where that collaboration comes with the marketing team. Because their job is to get your products into customers' hands, and if you're not giving them something that they can sell, you're creating a product that's not going to be successful. Right. And, you can imagine in my career, I've done a lot of interviews. And I think one of the things I hear sometimes from folks is like, hey, we built a really great product, but the marketing team failed in selling it. And that's, I think, a terrible answer because that just says that we didn't do a good enough job creating a product that the marketing team could sell.
That makes sense. Well, as an extension of that, so how do you think as a product leader around competition, right? There's
Mhm.
the incumbents, then there's, the other tech companies, and we're talking, Google's and Amazon's. And even when you were at iRobot, you had Shark that, had their version. Then there was other knockoffs. Like, so how do you factor that into the equation of competition?
Oh, I mean, it's clearly hugely important. You again have to get very clear what is your reason to exist in this category, and focus your resources. And sometimes it's boring because it's not the most exciting thing that you need to be focused on, but you got to focus your resources on driving that differentiation. So I mean, I'll give you an example, a sort of abstract example, right? So if you have somehow decided in a category, you're going to be the lowest cost player in the category. As a product manager and as a product team, your role is to deliver the lowest cost so that you can compete, if that is your intention, right? And really get focused on that point of differentiation and go innovate on that point of differentiation, whether it's lower cost or a particular performance parameter that you really will not want to do not want to lose on, right? If you want to be the best cleaning robotic vacuum cleaner, you've got to always be looking at what are the other products out there, where's the technology curve going relative to your different competitive sets, and how do you go innovate around that particular point of difference that you're trying to drive, the reason you exist to begin in the market, right? So if you want to be the best, but you're making all the trade-offs to be the lowest cost, you're eventually not going to be the best because that's not your focus.
All right, let's shift to career advice. So you've done a great job managing your career to, chief product officer. What advice would you have on, building that career path if someone aspires to, lead product at a company at, like SimpliSafe?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I just recently spent some time talking to my team about my career story. Um, and mine's actually been very non-traditional. But the one piece of advice um, I think has worked the best for me is focus on being really great at what you do and exposing yourself to as much knowledge and as many experiences as possible, rather than being focused on what your linear path is from A to B. Um, and candidly, that's worked really well for me. I never really sat and worried about, hey, when am I getting my next promotion? Um, I was really focused on what is this next experience I'm going to have, and how's that going to make me better? Um, and I mean, that's worked incredibly well for me. Right. So I'll tell you, when I was at P&G and decided that I was going to go from research and development into marketing, I actually had to take a two-level demotion to go into marketing. Right. So I was a section head. I was managing a pretty big team of technologists and working on white strips. But I was like, hey, I want to be in brand, so I want to become an assistant brand manager. And I was okay with that because I wasn't looking for that linear path. Um, I was looking to pick up some amazing experience working for what was at the time the best branding company in the world, and uh, expose myself to becoming a business leader and grow in that capacity, which I would have never gotten if I would have stayed there. I probably would have never ended up here if I wouldn't have chosen that path. And I think the the I think one of the mistakes folks make is they're really worried about levels and promotions rather than the journey.
It's great feedback. I completely agree. So we have about 8 minutes or so. So if anyone else has questions, like the questions have been fantastic. Thank you so much. Like I've been trying to weave them into the discussion, so they've been spot on. Good stuff. One of those questions was, I guess it relates back to the cross-selling piece. So you talked about, hey, outdoor security service. Like, how do you think about like when you have a customer, it's easier to expand a customer than it is to acquire a new customer typically. So how are you like the product team thinking about like what else can we do and obviously engage a higher value out of that consumer?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, yeah, yes, that is true. I will say, again, this is combination of a business and product question because it's certainly at SimpliSafe, we're not a big company, and we don't have a ton of resources at our disposal, so we have to be very choiceful about what we work on. We are um, we are very strongly focused because of our size in the market, right? We're still the underdog in the security category. So we have a really strong focus on customer acquisition, as you can imagine. Right, we're small share of the category. We got the behemoths out there with Vivint and ADT, and we have a better product, a better value. And so we believe we have the right to acquire many more customers. I think as you get bigger, and we will, we're looking at how do we offer um, more services to our installed base of customers that they value. And I think the what we're doing with outdoor monitoring actually has this fantastic benefit that it actually does both things for us. In that people who are out there, we call them protectors. So think about those as people who are really security conscious. They're looking at how do I get a service that delivers a better outcome for me. So outdoor monitoring and how we're looking at it as like actually better security outcomes for these customers is the way that we're going to bring new customers in. In addition, we can of course offer that as an additional service to our installed base. But our focus is still very much still on acquisition just because of our size.
All right, another question. So
The other thing you also have to be careful of is that at some point, being overly focused on just selling your current installed base more services, um, that has an end to it too. So you can't take your eye off of bringing new customers into your brand. Sorry, go ahead. Your last
no,
question.
no. So Simply Safe obviously, brought innovation from day one. Same thing with iRobot. It was like, okay, we're going to, those iterations of eventually becoming a consumer product from defense, I think, if my memory is correct. But going back to P&G with the white strips. So someone has a question like, was it harder to get the company and engineers to believe that this could be a category, or is it harder to actually build it, right? Like to actually test the cycles of making it a product that worked?
Yeah, the cool thing about White Strips was that it actually was an innovation that came directly from the product and engineering teams. Um, and we actually had a really big a really difficult time at that point getting the business to buy into White Strips. And and a lot of that was driven by how that company was structured, in that it was very much focused on like, hey, we're just going to sell more toothpaste. Right? Toothpaste is like an $800 million business. We're going to make it $1 billion. And it was actually there's a little bit of a fable around this, around the one of the lead inventors actually saw the CEO of the company at an event and had a prototype in his pocket that shared with the CEO. And the CEO just got so excited about it that he ended up sort of like pushing this back down. And we actually like created a specific general manager role whose only job was to bring that product to market. And that's when like the whole thing accelerated from sort of this idea that was floating around in the R&D organization to a product that sparked an entire business for the company.
So the lesson learned from that is go to the top.
It is well, I don't want to start any bad habits for folks, but there is another lesson which I strongly stand by is prototyping. Have your prototypes with you at all times. Nothing like you can have as many PowerPoints as you want. That does not sell at all unless you have a prototype and a demo. We also had this other demo. There was actually a human demo, which was like a bunch of us had whitened our top teeth and not whitened our bottom teeth. And so people are like, "Oh, does it work?" And you're standing demo, right? So demos and prototypes is actually the real lesson I would draw from that. And also, the top person thinking your product is great doesn't hurt either.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, because you've been so involved with hardware. So how do you think about that of prototyping hardware and then the manufacturing and then finance is like, well, that's cost too much. The materials, like the cross-functional teams that makes an organization actually ship a product.
Yeah, I think you don't have to fully manufacture most hardware to have a prototype. You can have a roadkill type of board that shows what you're doing. There's all kinds of uh, innovative ways to bring your product to life before you go to full scale manufacturing.
Well, Human, thanks so much for taking the time. We're running up to 1 o'clock here.
It's my
Uh,
pleasure.
we covered a lot. That was amazing, and I could keep going on and on for another couple hours here breaking down things, but we've got to be mindful of everyone's day. But thank you so much. Appreciate it. Everyone, this is going to be recorded and published. We usually get the recordings out there like a week, 2 weeks max out there. So stay tuned. Since you're signed up, you'll get an email from us saying that it's on VentureFizz. And we do have a YouTube channel and you can find recordings there as well. As I mentioned, our product management community, it's very vibrant and active. So if you are interested in participating in that, you can request an invite by going to venturefizz.com/communities. But otherwise, Human, thanks again for your time. This was an amazing wealth of knowledge. I'll do a clap for everybody.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for having me. It was great to meet you and great to talk with folks here.